Renee Rainville with EBI Results, where we help you improve health, wealth, and create succession plans that pay you through your golden years. We got Emmett, we got Josie with me. Happy Halloween!
Hi.
So we've got a big trick the government's playing on us. Corporate Transparency Act. This is not a good Halloween season for business owners. So I want to share with you some of the work that I do so you understand what I'm working on and how we can protect our next generation, Emmett and Josie, when they want to be business owners, to make sure that their rights are protected. So I'm going to share my screen. I do a lot of work with sales funnels. So you'll see something like this. I think I have one here too. We help real estate investors. We are short sale experts and business owners. There's a new law called the Corporate Transparency Act that is effective January 1, 2024. It's a secret law, it seems, because I talk to 20 or plus business owners every day, and they have no idea that they're on this list. If you're not making $5 million, I'm not. If you don't have 20 full-time employees, even when I'm making $5 million, I'm not going to have 20 full-time employees. I'm not going to have any employees. You are on this list. You also have to have an office, US-based office. And it's a really scary thing that you have to register for this new database. You have to register a lot of your personal information, and you have to register your business bank account with FinCEN, the Federal Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. They're looking for money laundering, and they're looking for shell companies. And real estate investors and small business owners are going to get caught in these crosshairs. If you want to learn how to keep your anonymity and stay off the Fed's radar, this will keep your bank accounts and your business assets from being seized by the feds. It seems salacious, but watch this webinar. So you're going to register for this webinar. You get to learn about who's talking about it with you. You get to learn about the benefits. And I'm going to play a little bit of it because I want you to get a sneak peek. This is very important information that nobody is talking about. We have a weekly webinar every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I really want you to tune in. When you register for this webinar, you're going to get our most recent webinar. This will give you a little bit of a teaser on what we're going to be talking about. You can take some notes. We want to schedule a strategy session with you because we want you to be ahead of it. We want to give you a couple of solutions. There's 2 solutions to stay off of this federal database. The IRS now has 60 billion in AI, so it's a matter of time before the target's on you. They can look back into your old tax filings and your new tax filings. I'm going to play this webinar, a little bit of it for you, okay? This is one of the older ones. And when you register, when you go through this, and you put in your email address and your time zone, you're going to get this webinar. You'll have it. And then you'll have an opportunity to register for our new Thursday Corporate Transparency Act webinar at 7 p.m. Eastern to learn any new information. Each week it's changed, each week it's updated, and you have the opportunity to ask any question that you want, industry specific to your business, and you get to bust out all the barriers. This is a database for the first time that we will all be subjected to. Before, they didn't have a place where we put all of our information for them to be able to search on, and now they do. And it's the IRS and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Agency that is going to be monitoring it. Your banks and your financial professionals are tasked by the government to look for suspicious activity. And what does that mean? There's no definition for it. But the banks also get to keep 35 to 40% of the accounts that they freeze. So it seems like there's a bit of an incentive. And the feds have already been into the major banks, been training them to look for suspicious activity. They're going to freeze at least 1,000 accounts per month. And that was just one of the banks. This is scary stuff. So I'm going to play this, a little bit of it. And if you're interested, just reach out to me. It's free information. Right now it's free anyway. And I just share it. I just want to share it with you.
I want to welcome everybody tonight to this webinar about the Corporate Transparency Act. And
recording in progress,
because it's absolutely going to change everything. And when I mean everything, I mean everything. If you're in business, if you're not a W-2 employee, it's going to change everything. And let me tell you a story about how Congress works. All right. They want to, they tend to pass these types of bills in the middle of the night. They stick it in some kind of a appropriations bill, usually under the guise of, well, no one's going to pay attention. They just want to get it done. And then we wake up 4 years later and see the predicament that we're in. In this case, this law was passed way back in 2020, but it comes to effect on January 1st, 2024. And a lot of you, if you're using LLCs as your main corporate entity to earn active business income, or if you're like me and a lot of real estate investors, you use LLCs as an asset protection strategy to put your properties into, well, it's going to nuke it. It's going to nuke everything. And you're going to understand when I get into this further. But this law is going to allow the press to connect the dots on every single thing you have, all your investments, your income streams, even if you're not a majority owner, you may not even be an owner officially, but you quote unquote exert influence in a company. Then it's gonna connect all of those dots, and it's gonna allow the IRS to put you and your businesses under a microscope like never before. We have never had a situation where the government is going to be able to see everything that we do. And just to introduce you to myself, my name is Don Thornton. I'm known as Don the Short Sale Guy because I flipped over 3,500 foreclosures, most of them short sales, hence named the Short Sale Guy. I'm approaching my 22nd year in real estate investing, and I'm a trustee of a trust that is pretty powerful, and I'll talk more about later in the webinar here. But I will confess to you that I have paid way too much money in taxes, and because I was always afraid of having people sue me and sue my business, I carried way too much liability insurance. At one time, I was paying as much as $5 million with a liability insurance, which was insane. But luckily, eventually, I found a way to solve all of those problems. I found an entity that I could run my business through, and it provides me 100% lawsuit-proof asset protection. It just blew me away how much tax reduction I was able to get. And this has allowed me, my knowledge and my experience has allowed me to be able to dedicate myself now to educating people how to follow the path that I found. But before we get into the meat and bones of this, I need to do a disclaimer that I am not a licensed legal or tax or accounting professional. Everything I say here is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon or considered legal, tax, or accounting advice. You should consult with a licensed professional before entering into any financial transaction. All right, let's get down to it. So what is the Corporate Transparency Act? It specifically is creating a new federal database. And what's interesting about this is that it's specifically targeting entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors. Okay. Now, supposedly, the idea, the cover story they're giving out is that it's to fight money laundering or terrorism or drug trafficking. Well, look, we know that maybe have a smidgen of what that's about, but it's actually just a cover to let the government and give the government the tools and the justification and the legal foundation to go after all of us, because they don't like the fact that there's strategies out there that have been remarkably effective to help people shield their assets and legally avoid paying a majority of the taxes that the government feels that we owe them. I want to remind you a lot of this was in the news in the last couple of years. Everybody was talking about the 85,000 new IRS agents that were coming on board. Remember that? And a lot of people don't remember, didn't know about, but the government, the IRS added billions of dollars of financing and resources to the budget of the IRS. And so the biggest thing they did was they were upgrading the digital capabilities of the IRS. They're bringing the IRS out of the Stone Age into an entity that can really effectively look at what we're doing. But the missing piece in all of this was a database they could get all of our information into, and I mean all of it. And they needed a law to compel us to give up our personal and our corporate anonymity voluntarily. Well, maybe not voluntarily, but no one's putting a gun to our head, but there are some significant consequences we'll get into if we don't comply in a legal manner. So all of that is designed to squeeze more money from us, to go to the government. That's really what it's all about. Let's just get more money, more control. And the Corporate Transparency Act was the law they needed to get passed to tie all of this together. It's under the Department of Treasury, and this is a killer thing for me here. The agency that has been tasked to implement this and oversee it is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. That's the money laundering people. They're the ones who got your money launderers. So what does that say to you about their intentions when they have the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network is the one overseeing this law and the implementation of it? That's pretty interesting, right? Well, let's talk about who's exempt. Fortune 500 companies, no problem. Financial institutions, of course, they're going to get a pass. Back in the Great Recession, nobody went to jail for their complete disregard for our country's security, financial security, and nothing to get in the way of them making millions. And when they went too far, they all got bailed out. Only one person went to jail. Defense contractors, well, that's the biggest part of our federal budget is defense. So of course they're going to let them have a pass. And W-2 employees, because they're already hit so bad, that I guess they figured they couldn't squeeze employees anymore. Now let's talk about business owners, businesses in general. There is a cutoff. So there are three main things that you have to be, or you have to have all three things in common to be exempt. You have to have at least $5 million or more in gross receipts, not net, gross. You have to have 20 plus full-time US-based employees, and you have to have an office, run your business from a physical location. Not if you're from home, if you're running from home, nothing. So you have all three of those to be able to be exempt. And of course, as I said, big companies are exempt. Well, let's think about that. Why are they exempt? Because they have the lobbyists and the money to buy off the politicians. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. They got around this because they were able to buy the politicians. We don't have that kind of influence, unfortunately. And for them, we're the low-hanging fruit. So go after us. And frankly, because we're successful, most of us have figured out how to do, maybe not perfectly, but there are lots of strategies out there that we've been using to minimize our tax burden and to hide a lot of our assets. Well, let's talk about who has to register, and good luck. Let's see if you qualify. And if you do, I'm sorry to tell you that. But if you have an LLC, an S corp, a C corp, or an LLP, or an LLLP, or sole proprietorship, and those entities make less than 5 million in gross receipts and have less than 20 employees, okay, then you have to register. And there's no other way except for one way to avoid registering. And of course, it doesn't matter if they say, well, I've got, I have one company, but, I may have, 25% in, 3 or 4 more LLCs or whatever. That happens a lot with real estate investors. They buy property in partnerships. And so they may have, 5 or 4 partners, and each one has 25%. Well, in that case, that's all going to have to be disclosed to the IRS, to this new federal database, because anybody who owns 25% or more in any entity has to register. And they have this real nebulous phrase about what if you have significant control or influence on a business. It's those nebulous little, not quite sure what they mean phrases that tend to scare me the most, because they can interpret that however they want to justify whatever they're going to do. All right. And so any owners of any of those properties or persons exercising significant control have to register for the Corporate Transparency Act. There is language in here about applicants. And I've spoken to a couple of our attorneys, and they don't even know what that means, what they mean by applicant, which is scary stuff. In addition, okay, now we've talked about who has to register. Now let's talk about the information that you have to disclose to this database. It's an incredible amount of information, personal information, that has to be disclosed. You have to give them your driver's license number, passport number. You have to send them digitally scanned photos of those IDs. And this is what really bugs me. I mean, everything bugs me about this, but especially the fact that we have to provide our residential address. Before, you just had to give your office address, or you could even have just one of those, UPS store or a PO box. That would be your official address. Not anymore. You got to give them your residential address, your date of birth, your social security number, and listen, the email addresses that are all the email addresses that are have anything to do with the businesses, all the phone numbers, and if you've got other ID cards, hey, lump them in with your passport and your driver's license. You got to send them over too. And regarding the company or the companies that you're involved with, you got to provide all of the identifying information for the company. And again, this nebulous name, applicants, whatever that means, that has to be provided. And in addition to all the legal name, trademarks it might have, any copyrights it has, if it's doing business as a DBA or DBAs, if it's plural, any business registrations. Basically, they want to see everything, your tax ID numbers. And if you have minor partners or you have beneficial owners, you also have to give all of that up to them. They are instituting a new FinCEN number. Remember, the FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Okay, we've had to get and maintain an EIN number before, but that was the only number that we had to get. Now there's a new number that's coming out, FinCEN number, and starting next year, to open up a new financial account or to maintain an existing account, you have to provide the financial institution where your accounts are located with a FinCEN number. So by doing this, everything that you have that you've been able to keep the feds at bay, you can use, anonymous LLCs, you can, have minority ownership, and you weren't required to disclose that. The only information they had to figure out what you were doing was on the tax returns, which are not, they're very full of numbers, not so much as far as whatever you own and stuff like that. But now, with a simple push of a button with their new AI and their new digital capabilities, and having one database that they can just do boom, 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 they can coordinate and analyze your finances and your assets. It's that easy. Now, their plan is for IRS AI to analyze all of your info, and IRS AI will decide if you're a suspect. Okay. Now, they have given the financial institutions the assignment to be the eyes and ears for the feds. All right. So if they see any quote unquote suspicious activities, then they are required to lock down the account, call the FBI, and an investigation is started. So I have a question for you. I'm going to go a little bit off topic here. But you ever, I'm sure all of us here have credit cards. I'm sure all of us have had situations where you try to charge something and it gets blocked. And so you get a message from the bank or the credit card company, and they ask you to verify this transaction. Now, that's AI. These banks have AIs working with them already. So now it's not even a human being that's doing this. So they're going to have their own AI working in concert with RSI, this database's AI, and so boom, they're going to get a suspicious activities report. People don't realize how serious this is going to be, and when that investigation starts, they will go through your business with a fine-tooth comb, and if they find anything wrong, they will seize your business. They will freeze your accounts. They can get your personal properties, and you're on the street. Metaphorically speaking, and nobody has the resources to fight the federal government. Nobody does. And here's a fun fact, kids: only 1% of money and assets that are seized by the federal government are ever returned. Good luck getting those back. Another interesting fun fact here: in these bank seizures, when they freeze your accounts, the banks get 35 to 40% of the accounts they freeze. So I wonder what their motivation is to resist this. I wonder if they're really going to, say, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. I believe in this." No. They're going to get rich off of this. All right. And what really annoys me is when I talk to people about this and they'll say, "Well, you know what? As long as you obey the law, you're okay." Well, here's the problem. Nobody's 100% clean. No matter how hard you try, one oversight they find, one missing disclosure, one mistake on a reporting form. If you had one undocumented employee that you may have inadvertently hired in the past, if they find anything that you slipped up on, that will give them the justification to shut it all down, and they get the money, which is really what this is. It's a money grab. And, just to make it worse, you have to constantly update your info to the federal government. So if you move, so give me an example, okay? So I moved to a different condo here in Orlando in September, first part of September. If I was in the database for the Corporate Transparency Act, I would have had to, within 30 days, notify them of my new personal residential address. If I bring somebody in as a partial owner, I have to update that and give them all of their information as well. And, they know what they're doing. They know that nobody's going to want to voluntarily comply with this once they get into and realize what they have to give up. So they have the hammer. The hammer is failure to comply is a criminal, and I repeat, criminal offense. They can get you for $500 minimum up to $1,500 minimum daily fines. And that's from the day that they first hear about a supposed, suspicious activity. It can go up to $10,000 max fine per violation. And here's the kicker: 2 years in prison per violation is now in the cards for this. That's a possibility. And anybody that sloughs this off and says, whatever, it's not going to happen. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. So, I was just thinking about this from the point of view of what if, and I'm by no means a conspiracy theorist guy, but think about this. We already know that big business buys politicians. We know that they have tons of influence, and think about Big Pharma, right? Big Pharma is always trying to stop anything that's going to keep them in the way of giving us more pills and more ways to make them rich. What if they decided they wanted to go after, and get the government to shut down some naturalist or alternative holistic medicine providers, and and smaller businesses they can really go after and get them gone. I mean, am I saying that's going to happen? No, I'm just saying that's one possibility if you think about it. I mean, let's face it. What when the government gets control, they don't tend to be moderate about things. Just saying, right? What I find extremely interesting and disturbing is that we are the only group that's targeted like this. We're the only group that can face jail time for something as simple as not updating the federal government on the address we moved to in a timely manner. Small businesses and investors, we're the ones they're going after. As always, the ultra rich, they exempted themselves. They bought themselves out of jail, figuratively and literally, probably. But the smaller fish, no, we're not. And as I said before, they're really going after shell companies. It includes those anonymous Wyoming, Delaware, Nevada LLCs, holding companies. I was reading the news today, and they were quoting, I don't forget the congressman that was quoted about this. They were talking about, shell companies and holding companies. And they were saying, well, that's where the fraud is. And I'm thinking to myself, no, it's not. It's where people of our ilk, those of us who have been educated enough to be able to use things like that we know that those are legal means to avoid paying taxes and to protect our assets. And so the connotation is, well, that's where all the fraud is. So they automatically equate shell companies, LLCs, holding companies with fraud. That gives you an idea of what their thinking is. Well, all of that stuff next year is going down. It's going down. Well, I hope I scared you a little bit, and it's not me scaring you. The truth should scare you. It scared the crap out of me when I first heard about this. It's like, oh my gosh. It makes it seem pretty bleak, doesn't it? Well, I'm going to ask you a question here, and I want you to think about it. It's very important. One of the most important questions you're going to hear and you're going to have to answer, before the end of the year. Why in the world would you voluntarily comply with this outrageous, horrendous, horrible law if there was a legal, and I repeat, legal way to avoid it? What if I told you there was a loophole? The mother of all loopholes. Our clients run their businesses, protect their assets, and protect their anonymity, and they get really significant tax reductions, and they're able to shield their assets from.
So, what do you think so far? Pretty interesting information, right? I'd love to show you the rest. I'd love for you to register for the webinar. We host it every week, Thursdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. I want you to know about this law. I want the Corporate Transparency Act to go away. I think that we need to do something to make that happen collectively. And in the meantime, there are 2 solutions that you have. We'd love to run your business through it to see what qualifies. Apply to work with us. Check out your options. January is coming fast. You have 1 year to be in compliance. Read the Corporate Transparency Act. Be aware of what's happening. This is some dangerous stuff. So just wanted to let you know, this is what I'm working on. You're going to hear me talking about this. Again, Renee Rainville with EBI Results, where we help improve health, wealth, and create succession plans that pay you through your golden years and beyond. Nobody wants to keep doing the work that they're doing right now, but they need to keep making money. So that's what we talk about. Talk to you guys soon.